Now, coming back to explaining to you the connection of these things right now, right? Since that's what we were talking about, people in trauma especially, they live constantly in between here. Remember what I said? This place, which was the home, the safe place, it doesn't exist for them. So they don't have this space of the ladder. They only have the space to go up and down, and that's what they think. So imagine as a child, if this is the only thing you know, when you grow up, do you even think this will be accessible to you? No, because you don't believe it exists. You don't believe that there is anything possible that can make you feel that safe. So you feel like this is where you are. So what happens is, you get in a space where, okay, let's say you, like I said, you're a trauma victim for whatever reason. And when you were in a trauma, you got into a place that made you feel really like, that suppressed any of your responses, so you got into this zone. Now, as you grow older, let's say you encounter a partner who reminds you of that trauma in some way. Maybe he was an abuser, your partner. And this is the thing about life, is that we keep attracting these partners because this is the only thing we know, right? We don't know this. So we keep attracting partners who only keep showing us this, but what that means, we're constantly living in this loop. And this loop is also on another tangential way, but associated, called the limbic loop. Now, the goal with this space is to be able to connect the green to the yellow, and to also be able to connect the green to the red. And the reason being, because with both of these, we're creating safe associations. Now, you may be wondering, well, why the fuck do I need to be in either the orange or the red if the green is always so great? And it is because we need the orange especially to be able to create a sense of arousal, to be able to create a sense of like heightenedness. We need, our bodies have adrenaline for a reason. It's the reason, like, you know, even in the gym and so many other places, in the exercise or any of that, that we feel that level of like arousal, and we need to be able to connect with it. However, we need to understand where the safe level of arousal exists. We need to understand where the safe level of that connection exists. Now, what does it mean to feel the connection between the green and the yellow and the green and the orange? What does that even mean, you ask, right? So this place is safe, this place is arousal, this place is like feeling unsafe, immobilization. Now, this part especially, actually, I have to give credit to Mask and Kip, because these were very much a lot of his examples that I want to share with you guys. And again, I'll share that video with you. But think about this. What would safe arousal feel like? Safe arousal would feel like feeling sexually aroused in a safe place, feeling connected to a partner where you feel passionate, but you don't feel like you're going to be abused. You know and you understand what your level of internal safety is, so you know what the boundaries are you're willing to be drawn. You know what the extent you're willing to step into like sexual discovery or sexual connection is, because you feel safe and confident within yourself, but you're willing to get really excited. Safe arousal also looks like being able to participate in games, being able to participate in sports, exercise, anything else where you feel really excited and your heart rate is fluctuating, but you feel safe. You know that it's a trusted space of your expression. So, for example, this is why for men, this is so important, because men feel like emotions is unsafe. But there are so many ways of being able to create a healthy level of expression of our emotion and our safety. So, like I said, sports, for example, for men, or games where you feel like it's a safe expression of your ability to get aroused. For partners, it's really important. When you feel safe, you'll always notice. I learned this in, I think, the 6th grade when I stole a Cosmo magazine. My sisters had Cosmopolitan magazines all the time, and I stole one, and it said, it is almost, and I don't want to say it is completely, because there's a lot of like, context to this as I studied like, neurophysiology later on and neuroscience. I understand there's extensions to that, but it is almost impossible for a woman to truly feel sexually aroused and connected to a partner if she doesn't feel safe. Now, this is not 100%, and we won't get into that aspect, because there's that aspect of like where trauma survivors and victims do feel that, and there's a whole scientific basis to it. But let's consider this aspect, right? About how powerful it is for a woman to truly feel connected. And I say woman for a reason. For them to truly have like an amazing orgasm or a great partnership or connection, they have to be able to feel safe, because that level of arousal connects with this. So if you are a husband, if you are a boyfriend, if you are a partner, even if you're a woman, if you want to have true physical connection and true like powerful sex in your life, you have to realize that your safety is really important. And I don't just mean physical safety. I mean your emotional safety and the way you connect with someone. So on that extent, you think about where else it might show up. It shows up in, like, for example, moments like this. I'm really excited, but I know I feel safe. I don't feel threatened. I don't feel like my value is being threatened. I don't feel like, people will jump on and they'll make comments and they'll say all of that stuff. But my level of internal security is so high that in this setting of socializing, even while I'm excited, I don't feel like I'm unsafe. Now, let's jump on to the ventral to the other side, right? So the ventral to the dorsal. Now so if you're saying, okay, this is a place where we get into a place where we're like frozen, right? So it's the calming down of the nervous system in a place where you feel frozen, you feel immobilized. Think of some of the things that you can feel safe with doing this. Think about sleep. Sleep is a place, if you feel safe, you can sleep well. If you feel unsafe, will you sleep well? Think about it. If you're in a dangerous situation, if you're in a situation where you're anxious, you're constantly threatened, you're going from here, will you be able to sleep well? You won't. But sleep is almost like an immobilizing act. It's an act where you sleep, like when you're in bed, you're like almost still. I mean, not if you're me. I actually roll around and like I swing and I kick people. You can ask girlfriends, former girlfriends, they'll all tell you I talk in my sleep and I roll around my sleep. It probably says something. But in this space, sleep is a space where you can feel it. Think about cuddling. Think about spooning. Think about my favorite way of expression of love, a hug. If you feel so safe, a hug is not where you're jumping, high-fiving, you're moving around doing things. You're in each other's arms and you embrace what? You embrace love, but you embrace safety. A hug is here, safety, because it's a socializing, safe feeling that you're feeling with another human being and an expression of an emotion. It's safe, but it's not very dynamic. It's peace. It's calm. It's comforting. In a moment when you feel really dysregulated, when you're feeling really painful, when you're feeling really like something's going on in your life, when you're feeling like you need to cry, when you need to let go of an emotion or something, what do you want most from people? You want a hug. And a hug connects safety in feeling something from a person, and it connects them to just being still. I teach a masculine and femininity class as well, and something that's so important for women. And this is an area of their lives that unfortunately has been, in many ways, in North America at least, in my opinion, has been disregarded and ignored as like conditioned, as society's been conditioned. We've gone through an emotionally, I would say, an unfortunate toxic masculine like society that's been developing, is that expression of a hug, of connection, of a kiss, of love has been missing. And the reason I bring up like with the masculine and feminine is that a lot of people think that for the feminine to develop, it needs to have a good idea of the feminine, which is that for me to be a truly feminine person, I need my mom to be feminine, for example, if I was a woman. Not necessarily true. For a girl or a woman to develop true femininity, she needs to feel the safety of the masculinity. And the first person to express and show that safety of the masculinity to a little girl is who? Her dad. This is so important in that process, because if a girl is hugged and embraced by her dad, feeling that true connection of safety, that true connection of love and protection, she now develops this identity of trust in her father, in herself, and therefore starts attracting relationships that mimic the same thing, because that's her idea of connection to men, is safety, it's trust, it's protection, it's a safe dependency. So it's so important for us to understand how can we link these two, because that could really change our own idea of our relationships with our husbands, or the men who we're with. Even if we're with men who are emotionally unavailable, who represent so much of the past that we've had, of the relationship with our fathers, etc., we have to try and see how can we allow this creation and this connection to be built. How can we connect with them, work with them, and make them feel safe enough to express their emotions? It's funny enough, but for men, it's the same thing. If a man doesn't feel safe enough to express his emotions to someone, and he only feels that he can express it this way, then what does he express it with? He gets aggravated, he expresses it by shouting, by yelling, by hitting, by doing something else, or he goes in a place where he just doesn't talk. He doesn't speak about anything, he doesn't express emotions, nothing, and he lives in this space. But if a man feels safe to be able to express his emotions, to be able to be himself, and to be able to show how he can be protectable and dependable and any of that, then he allows the same safety idea to come into his relationships. He finds women who he doesn't think are using him, as you may have heard a lot of men speak of, but he finds women who come into his life who can support him, who can complement him, who can help him grow. That's the power about how, if we understand the cycle, the space, we get to really, really change our lives. We get to really understand where's our safety level, where is it I'm feeling safe and where is it I'm not. And so the point of all of this, of all of understanding this whole thing is what? Is to understanding our level of safety, our level of emotional safety. It's to be able to observe our own reactions. It's to be able to observe what's happening to us in a situation where we get triggered. So in a situation where you get triggered, you're probably going to be here most likely a lot of the time, but what is your response to that trigger? Is it to fight? Is it to flight? To run away? These are primarily situations that hang in here. Or is it to freeze? Because you feel like something's coming up which is going to re-traumatize you. You feel like something's coming up which is going to take you back to that episode of where you were, which is going to take you back to the pain, which is going to take you back to like everything that's coming up like from where you were and the trauma that came to you once and that you feel like you're going to relive it. Now, this is so important because if you understand that this is important to you, and I beg you, please, even if you don't believe me, go Google it, go watch it, watch Maston Kipp's thing. I'll put it up on our page as well, on a story so you guys can watch it. If you don't believe me, Google it, research it, do whatever, but trust that this can tell you so much about your life. So much. Because if you find yourself in these moments where, let's say you get triggered, let's take a practical example, right? You get triggered in a relationship. And if you're in this space, if you can provide yourself regulation, so if you're here and if you can provide yourself regulation first and most importantly through breath work, because as we talked about, the breath leads to the diaphragm, which leads to the vagus nerve. If you can regulate that, then you're allowing yourself to slowly climb up the ladder here. But in that moment, if you're triggered, if you don't allow that to happen, you allow the dysregulation to take over you, then you practically live in this space or you'll go down here. You'll feel hopeless. So if you can even look at the human beings in this space, right, the little drawings that are printed out in here, you can see that the person here is in a place where their head's in their hands. They're basically sad, lonely, hopeless. This actually is corresponding to another vibrational frequency chart, which maybe I'll bring to you guys one time and teach you guys again, created by David Hawkins. And it's called the Hawkins vibrational frequency. And at the bottom of it is the emotions and the energetic vibration of emotions that are the lowest, which is hopelessness, which is like a lack and loss of worth, which is just feeling like, we're completely worthless, which is feeling like our emotions are completely not relevant. And so as we climb up the cycle, yes, we're getting a little aggravated, but here we're defending and we're feeling like, okay, this is something that I can stand up for. Living in this space is, however, not good enough. But if we can regulate between these spaces, we're allowing ourselves to go up. We're allowing ourselves to move more towards this space, and this space of safety is important because it for two reasons, and I'm going to focus more on the one right now, is because it's going to talk about this internal safety within ourselves. But it talks about how when we understand the concept of safety and internal safety, then we look at external safety. We know what to expect from external safety. Why? Because we know what the internal safety is about. We know what we feel inside. We know what to understand of it. If we understand how to regulate and become more internally safe, then what happens is we start inviting that safety from other situations in our lives. Our relationships are the first place that reflect what's going on in our lives. I put out a video a few days ago about how relationships are the biggest mirror for what we're going through. And so one of the big things, if we're talking about safety and we're trying to see like how safe or unsafe am I, then a good way for you to be able to establish that is through your relationship. What is your relationship like? How safe do you feel in this relationship? How safe do you feel in this connection with this person? How safe do you feel to be able to express yourself, to be able to talk about who you are, to be able to say I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm angry, but not say it in a place of manipulation, but to be able to say it out of genuinity.